Hello. When I say the word art, what do you think of? Maybe you think about music. Maybe you think about performance art or the fine arts, like drawing, sculpture, and painting. Maybe you think about the graphic arts or design and architecture. For me, when I hear the word art, I think about all those topics. But now as an artist and designer myself, what I really think about are the individuals behind the skills, the people who had the open and creative minds to see the world in new and unexpected ways, the original problem solvers who weren't afraid to take risk and invent something new. For me, this all started with a love to draw, the simple act of putting pen to paper, and that passion being supported through my 12 years of public school education. This evolved into a life that was productive, lucrative, and fulfilling. But our children aren't getting that chance today. By the end of this year, a quarter of our national public schools will not have art education. This is a terrible statistic, and that's why I'm here to talk with you today. I want to talk with you about keeping art education in our schools and why its inclusion is so important. So let me paint you a picture. I'm an only child. I grew up in southern, suburban New Hampshire. My dad worked in manufacturing. My mom often worked 2 jobs. They were not artists by the broadest definition of the word. And the reason I bring this up is to point out that I had no special advantage. I wasn't handed an art career. My parents weren't rich. I went to public school. I was completely average in academics, even more average in sports. But when I got to go to that art room, the whole world opened up. That was my place. I went from average to extraordinary, and I don't know why. It just connected. Art was the glue that put all the other subjects together for me. I remember in 6th grade asking my English teacher if I could illustrate a book report. She said yes. But seriously, I wanted to be an illustrator. I wanted to be a children's book author. I wanted to be a graphic novelist. This is real. And this got me to read that book cover to cover and create a document that it showed that. So my art education in elementary school and my public school set me up really well. All those fundamental skills transferred perfectly into high school. So I went to a public high school where we had 3 full-time art teachers and an architect. Yeah, right? My fine art teacher, a fine artist himself, really allowed me to master the fine arts, drawing, painting, and sculpture. And then when I went over to architecture, I was able to take the seeing and drawing to drawing and building. And that combination of events really influenced the rest of my life. This set me up perfectly for being the first in my family to go to college. I knew I was very good at the technical and skill component of the arts. But what I wanted was the conceptual part. I wanted the art that made you stop and awe. I wanted to create architecture that moved you. I wanted to create art with a capital A. I applied and was accepted to my #1 choice, the Rhode Island School of Design. And I spent the next 4 sleepless years completely saturated in art and design. I studied a field called industrial design, which is the mass production of consumer objects. That is not as dry as it sounds. Like everything in this room was designed by someone. All the chairs, all your clothing, the lighting, the stage, the walls, everything had to be made. I wanted to learn how to do this. This seemed like a fascinating field. So I got taught plastics and metal and wood and composites. I learned how to make everything. Through this education, I learned about companies like IKEA and Patagonia. And I learned that I had a responsibility when designing these products to do it in an environmentally responsible way. This inspired me to apply for an internship at Patagonia. At the time, I didn't even know how to sew, but it didn't matter. I could learn the skills. It was the concept of linking product to art, and the product to the environment that I really wanted to understand. My love of drawing drove me to be an environmentalist. I go back to school, I graduate, I spend the next 15 years as a freelance designer. I design over 40 products for 6 different companies. I'm awarded 2 patents. I help these companies make tens of millions of dollars. I work with athletes and scientists designing helmets to reduce concussions. I become so good at computer-aided design that I work with the software developers because I push the program in unexpected ways that they never planned for. That's what a creative mind does. And when I go back to my high school every few years, I tell all of those kids how powerful my ability to draw in front of my clients was. They could talk to me, and I could put their ideas on paper, right in front of them. Art made me a businessman. For the past 6 years, I've been an entrepreneur in Twist, Washington. I've partnered with TwistWorks to use art as an economic engine. I have 10 local, talented employees. And together, we build lifetime products in an effort to reduce our need for disposable ones. I'd even like to think that I've passed this torch of weaving art into life. Our 3rd-year high school intern was just accepted to an Ivy League school to study design and engineering. Yeah, I feel good. From day one, art was a link for me. Like I said, it was the glue that made all the other subjects relevant. It motivated me to go to school. It motivated me to learn the subjects. So imagine my surprise when my wife, a fine artist herself, and an elementary school art teacher, we moved to the Methow Valley to find out there's no elementary school art teacher. In fact, I find out that 70% of the elementary schools in Okanagan County don't have elementary school art. Yeah, so my advocacy of art gets out into the community. I'm invited to join the board of Methow Arts, a local nonprofit that bridges the gap that the public schools aren't filling. I mean, how many of you remember having art classes in elementary school? Yeah, that's a fair amount of people. That's not happening for our kids today. Wenatchee, you're doing much better than the Okanagan Valley, but 1 in 4 kids in the Wenatchee Valley are not getting elementary school art education. And if there's a kid like me in that class, they might miss on the opportunity to put it all together. By the end of this year, 70% of Western states will not have elementary school art education. That's over 2/3 of our kids. Washington ranks 45th in art school funding. This is one of the most creative and ingenious places I've ever lived. Why is this not around? Why is this not being included in our education? In the late 90s, the National Science Foundation started a movement called SMET, Science, Math, Engineering, and Technology. A few years later, a creative biologist showed up and rearranged those letters to spell STEM. President Obama doubles down on this initiative to bring science, technology, engineering, and math into the classroom. I totally get it. These are incredibly valid topics. But at the same time, art education funding plummets. My alma mater sees this, steps in, and says, hey, you guys are forgetting one of the most important attributes of pulling all this stuff together and making it relevant and feeding that creative mind. That's the A. That's the capital A. And when you put that into STEM, you get STEAM. And STEAM can actually power ideas. So, if art education is so great, if art education increases math scores and improves and improves English comprehension and makes happier students and increases teacher retention because you have happier students, if all this good stuff happens with art, why are they taking it away? Why would you take art out of our child's education? Public television, Sesame Street, Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer, every children's book you've ever written, every children's movie you've ever seen. Kids are first introduced to education through these mediums. This is a very easy way to engage a child's mind. The right side of their brain, they're sponges. They're ready for this. Why would you take art out of our economy? Do you think Steve Jobs had a little bit of art education? He took design and technology and put it together in a way the world has never seen. I just read last night that if it wasn't for art education, the Macintosh computer wouldn't have been invented. Steve Jobs, he created the most valuable company in American history. It's valued at $1 trillion and has 123,000 employees. One of my most current favorite stories is a couple of RISD grads who graduated about 10 years after me. They studied the same field, industrial design, but they used that creative training in a totally different way to disrupt the hotel industry. They put an air mattress in their San Francisco flat and said, let's rent this out as an Airbnb. Yeah, they're in their mid-30s, they're billionaires. At any given night, there's 2 million happy people staying in 2 million other people's homes. This is what a creative mind can do. Why would you take this out? And why would you take art education out of our culture? It's been with us for millions of years. In fact, the first mass-produced object is 2.6 million years old. They're arrowheads, and they're scattered all over Africa. There's some parts of history that are only passed through music and song and art, cave paintings that are hundreds of thousands of years old. This is our only connection to history. Why would you take that out? Art works. It's worked since the beginning of time, and it works today. Heck, it's made me a public speaker. And I'm not here to ask you to do anything special for art. Don't put it on a pedestal. I'm just asking that you put it at the same playing field as all the other academics, so kids can find their passion and hook to it, whether that's music or biology or science or math or dancing. We need kids to find relevance. Art brings relevance. So what can we do? Well, you can come to events like this. You can talk to your teachers, your principals, and your superintendents. You can ask them how they use art in the classroom. You can encourage them to adopt an integrated arts curriculum. You can support your nonprofits, like the Wenatchee Art Education Consortium, Methow Arts, the Washington State Art Alliance. You can pressure your state reps and your senators to include more art in the curriculum. This is your tax dollars, and you can tell them how we want it spent, and art belongs in our education. You can challenge yourself. Pick up a guitar. Grab some watercolors with your kids. See what happens. Let go for a minute. So when you leave this afternoon, I want you to take notice of all the art in your life. I want you to take notice when you walk out of this room, the art in the hallways, the gallery show, that door that pivots on the middle axis, like the sculptures in the campus, your automobile, the hundreds, if not thousands, of graphic design signs that you will drive by on your way home. All of this is art. So, art is good. Art is really good. and it deserves to stay in our education, if not only because it makes us happy, but it is proven time after time that a life with art will result in a healthier, more inclusive, more resilient world. Thank you.